Pretending is really important. It's linked to creativity in children. It helps children learn about the world, and it's an important part of early years curricula across the world. We ran an experiment with 82 2 and 3 year olds and their parents to see if children can learn to pretend from an app. One group of parents taught their children to pretend to cook with actual toys. So, pots and pans, toy or real vegetables, spatulas, things like that. Another group of parents taught their children to pretend to cook, but using an app. So in the app, there are pots and pans and spatulas and things like that, but all the actions are kind of just involving swiping. We had two more groups who acted as controls in which children drew. So they either used, paper and markers, or they used a drawing app, and children were just encouraged to draw shapes. Then we tested children to see if they if they would show us the pretending that the parents had taught the pretending groups. So the cooking pretending, would kids know how to pretend to chop food? Would they know how to pretend to, stir food in a pot and things like that? We also wanted to see if children would copy new pretend acts that we hadn't shown them beforehand. So for instance, pretending a toilet roll tube was a doll's hat. And also finally to see if kids could invent their own pretending that we hadn't shown them. So actually, children who played with the pretend app did significantly better at reproducing those pretend acts in the second half than kids who played with the toys. That was surprising because actually, going from a screen kind of swiping, touching thing to actually chopping, let's say, with an actual knife should be much more difficult for them. Whereas the other kids, they're just doing the same motion throughout. Bizarrely, the children who were in the drawing group, drawing with paper and pencils, also did significantly better than the children who pretended with real toys. And we didn't even show them the actions. So what that suggests is that, first of all, 2 and 3 year olds generally know how to pretend how to cook. The kids came in with that knowledge already. And second of all, what we think might be happening is that children in the pretend group, who pretend with actual toys, their parents, maybe they can only sustain their attention so long and they're just getting bored of pretending by the second half. And so going from drawing to pretending was maybe more exciting for kids. Kids were more engaged, or even going from an app to a physical format of pretending was engaging for kids. So maybe using an app first will actually get kids to pretend longer. When we looked at whether children would copy new pretending that we showed them, so things like, pretending a toilet roll tube is a doll's hat, again, we had some strange results. The children in the drawing groups, whether they used paper and markers or they used an app, outperformed children in both pretending groups. This is again really surprising. We would have thought the kids in the pretending groups would be warmed up, ready to copy pretending. Again, our best explanation for this is that kids were getting bored of pretending by the second half. The drawing kids were kind of more excited about it maybe because it was a different activity. And finally, when we looked at whether kids would invent their own pretending, there was no difference across the groups. So these are very surprising results, and it's kind of hard to understand what they mean. But what does it mean in terms of touchscreen use? Well, certainly, using touchscreen pretend games with your kids is not a bad thing. It might sustain their pretending over a long period of time if you switch back and forth between an app and toys. It might keep their attention longer. And, it doesn't seem to do anything wrong. So as a fun, enjoyable activity, it's something you could do. It's not clear that it's particularly beneficial, however. And so when you are pretending with an app with your child, things to remember are, choose an app that allows pretending. There's lots of apps with, making food, chopping hair, getting dressed, all these kinds of things. And explain the pretending to your kids. Talk about it. Tell them what you're doing.